Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Facebook Live. My name is Kylie, and today we are diving into our LEPSL 570 Discussion Board MVP interview. Thank you all so much for joining us today, whether you're here with us live or watching the replay. Please go ahead and utilize the chat feature and say hello and let us know you're here and where you're coming from. And with that, I will go ahead and kick it over to our academic director, Dr. Erik Fritsvold. Thanks, everyone.
Well, Kylie, thanks so much for the warm introduction, and law enforcement and public safety leadership community, thanks for joining us. As noted, we're here to celebrate our discussion board MVP winner, probably the most prestigious recognition in our entire program. And I will say the discussion boards are the heart and soul of LEPSL, bringing students together, high capacity, high caliber students from across the country and beyond to share best practices, talk through challenges and opportunities. I can say personally and professionally, it's really a special thing for me to be a part of. And we are quite frankly indebted to students like today's winner, who are a leader among leaders, who are so committed to interacting with their colleagues and what's the phrase, sharpening iron with iron or something like that, making us collectively better. So with deep appreciation, please join me in congratulating the Deputy Chief from Durango Police Department, our discussion board MVP, Brice Current. Brice, huge congratulations, and thanks for the time here this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Fritsvold. It's humbling. There's some amazing people on the discussion boards, and it's an honor to be here.
Wonderful. Well, doing my prep, I did some fifth grade math, so I'm going to throw some data your way here. You were engaged on the discussion boards. I'm sure this is one of the reasons you were recognized, way above and beyond simple course requirements. I looked back at the LEPSL 570 class in module 1. Granted, there are 2 discussions, but you posted 22 times. In module 2, you quadrupled the course requirements. In module 3, you tripled the course requirements. So, I mean, clearly on these boards, you had earned the grade a long time ago, but continued to engage. Can you just talk a little bit about your motivation and why you were so engaged beyond just kind of checking the box for the grade?
Well, in the law enforcement community, we go to different trainings and schools, and we have the opportunity to interact with other law enforcement agencies at times, but generally it's very rare. And so to have the opportunity to reach out and talk to other people, and realistically, our learning is really ancestral in nature when it comes to, within our own community and our own culture. And so it's nice to get some diversity and be able to reach out and just talk to other people and see some other things. It's nice to also have the freedom to communicate, not as the deputy chief, but right, just as another individual wanting to learn. It's nice to stay grounded and hear from somebody that's brand new and who's not going to take the opportunity to talk to a chief from another agency. So
I appreciate that. And speaking of that diversity, as I noted, we're honored that this program's national and now even international, with a handful of students from Canada. Looking at your particular class where you won this recognition, you had students, I mean, you're from Colorado, you had students from Oregon, Texas, California, Washington. There was a lieutenant from Minnesota in your class. Can you talk a little bit about that diversity and kind of shared experience across the country?
I mean, there's so many different perspectives, and you don't know what you don't know. And it's going through a program like this that you start to realize what you don't know. And it's not, a lot of the students were from California, and I see that as the eye of the storm. I like to think where there's all the change, and there's a lot of change going on right now. And you can either get on board, or a lot of people are leaving, and we need leaders to step up at this time more than ever and lead and help and look at the change. It's a great opportunity to see so many people from so many different cultures and to look at different ways to do things. There's definitely a wrong way to do things, but there are multiple right ways to do that. And when you experience so many different cultures and people, you're able to see that and learn and grow. It's a great opportunity.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I've really seen that firsthand. I'm an outsider to your profession, but it's a real privilege to see that There are definitely some things to avoid, as you said, but there are multiple ways to be successful. There are multiple ways to thrive in the current climate, and it's cool to see those different models. Speaking of the geography here, Chief, being from the Colorado, New Mexico area, how did you hear about the LEPSL program and a university clearly quite a bit to the west of you?
I mean, you know, it's interesting because, I mean, do you want the truth? It's kind of a funny story. So, so I retired from San Juan County, New Mexico, and I was able to retire and take on a second profession. And so I took this job here in Durango, which is about 30 minutes away, and we're able to double dip really. And so it was a great opportunity to come up here and start a second career. Well, when I arrived, the chief, he's a Marine, and he's very educated, and he's a mover and a shaker. And he said, "Hey, are you gonna get your master's program, or are you gonna get your degree, and are you gonna attend the FBI Academy?" And I attended staff and command previously, and I realized it wasn't a question; it was a directive. And then so he sent me an email with the scholarship for LEPSL, and this is about a year in. And so I was just wanting to get acclimated and really learn the streets and learn the culture and learn, you know, and I did plan on attending a master's program down the road, but it was going to be a year or two out. And he sent me that scholarship, and I was laughing in the hallway, and I said, "Hey, is that a hint?" And he wasn't laughing. And so, you know, there's no time like the present. And here's the second thing. Here's the second thing that happened. I called you, and I discussed the FBI NA, and I was looking at saving money and time, and you know, those are precious commodities, and I thought, why not, you know, try to make that happen. And I was going to see which schools, and I had a list of schools that would accept the program. But when I asked you, it was amazing the information I got back, and it was very detailed. And the thing you told me was, you said, don't start right away. Start a semester from now. And, you know, and I worked narcotics for years. I know when you get a new informant or whatever, you got to get them dirty right away, or you're going to lose them. And so, you know, and I think it's the same thing probably with you guys. You know, if you tell somebody not to apply for an entire semester, and then you're probably not going to get them to apply. You know, they're going to find another school or find something else, or just put it off. And I was very impressed with your honesty and the integrity of the whole deal, and plus all the information you gave me. So I did not listen to your advice, and I started right away. I started immediately, and I'm probably not going to get into the FBI Academy before I'm done. And you know what? That's fine though. I'm enjoying the education so much, and you know, it's just money at the end of the day, and life is good. And so if I get in, I might save a credit or two, but if not, I'll have both experiences. So.
Wow, I really appreciated the backstory. Appreciated the opportunity to talk to you some time ago. I will say there's a LEPSL faculty and 2 LEPSL students in the FBI NA right now, and it's my understanding they divide the session into 5 subgroups, and by coincidence, they're all in the same subgroup. So they were texting me photos side by side yesterday, actually. Pretty cool to be represented out in Quantico. Circling back to the program here a little bit, Chief. You clearly have a demanding role in your agency. You know, we've gotten to know each other a little bit. I know you have a thriving and busy family life. Can you talk a little bit about your time management? How do you make it all work? A demanding and unpredictable profession, demanding and rewarding family, and obviously a master's degree on top of it all.
Yeah, so I have a daughter in college, and I have 2 kids, one in junior high and one in high school. And you know, to say that I balance it, I would be lying. You know, and the hard reality is, and this is what I tell people, when you take a specialty assignment in law enforcement, you essentially, you know, you're going to give up your time. And so the answer to the question is, I have an amazing wife. She is absolutely amazing. She works from home. And when it's time to work, I tell her, when I started narcotics or in detectives or street crimes, you know, when I went to staff and command for 3 months, this program, I basically say, babe, I'm going to be gone. for a period of time. There's a light at the end of the tunnel. We have a goal, we have a plan, and she steps in and she maintains a lot of the roles that I would be maintaining at the time. And so, you know, do we balance it? No, we balance it over time. It's more like an investment. And, you know, so, you know, that's kind of the answer to that. I'm just too busy right now, and I'm going to manage that, but it'll end.
And one of our goals, I will say, you know, we have an in-person graduation ceremony every May, you know, pandemic allowing. And I always make sure to thank the families. And our goal as a program is not only to serve you, the student, but we realize it's your family who's making a huge investment in us. We work really hard to make sure that that investment pays dividends right away. Awesome. So family support is key. Let's see, circling back to the discussion boards, I was doing my research for this exchange today, and I noticed you had a particular discussion board interaction with a high-ranking sheriff from Northern California. You two were discussing wellness issues, and you ended up sharing quite a bit about your agency's biannual officer resiliency program. And as soon as you brought that up and shared some of the details, there were something like 25 posts after that. Clearly, a lot of students wanted to learn more. Can you talk a little bit about just kind of sharing best practices like that? I mean, I assume that's a pretty unique opportunity for this sheriff in the Bay Area in San Francisco to, you know, have this insider's perspective on a wellness program that's proven really successful, you know, quite a ways away.
Yeah, I think it's those discussions where you really find the gold and the value in the program. And, you know, I have a really close friend that took her life outside the sheriff's office this year, and you know, these discussions are too important not to have. And you know, you have anytime I have a feeling to say something or do something, you know, I've tried to make it a point to follow up with it and not just let it be a feeling, and be able to have those discussions, and then the follow-up discussions, and then the sharing of information takes place, and then the connection takes place. And that's really where we're gonna thrive in this profession. I mean, realistically, I think one of the biggest problems I faced in law enforcement is, you know, learning to be a good cop. You learn to be a great cop, but then all of a sudden you're a CEO. And, you know, and you do, and you're just put in that position, and they're like, hey, this is your job now. Good luck. And do we gain experience and knowledge along the way? Absolutely. But do you have the opportunity? You know, you have a lot of opportunities to learn to be a CEO along the way. And, you know, we're basically running a business. And if you're going to be a leader and run a business, then you need a lot of training. And it's these types of discussions that really give you the perspective you need to succeed.
Wow. I appreciate your candor, and so sorry to hear about the loss of your close friend. And I know we have a lot of students really on the cutting edge of wellness issues. And I will say, a little sneak peek here, for our summer classes, we're going to have 2, if not 3 full modules on officer wellness, suicide prevention. We'll probably speak with Chief Neil Gang, who I think you've been in class with from the Bay Area, who's working on some phenomenal programming in this area. So
he's amazing.
Amazing, right?
Case in point right there. I mean, that guy, you know, when he speaks, I listen, and that's a reason.
Yeah. I sit up a little more straight in my chair as well. So I'm looking forward to that and tackling tough issues head on. That's what we hope that the program does. Let's see, circling back a little bit, you're firmly at the halfway point here, Deputy Chief. You got a couple semesters behind you. You're in your 5th class right now. Are there any particular faculty members that stand out in your time in the program?
Yeah, I mean, I have Professor Goldberg now for the 2nd time, actually. And he's the type of guy I'd want to work for. He's the person that, you know, doesn't come to work for the paycheck, but actually you can tell he enjoys it, and he gets engaged. He has he does a little extra. We'll do a Zoom conference on Sunday where he'll have everybody on. And he's also the type of guy you get to know how people operate, or how you think they operated when they were on patrol, or when when they were a leader in their organization. And he's the guy I'd want to work for. He embodies the servant leadership in a way, and the reason I can tell that is because he always talks about patrol. and how they're the most important function. And, or if I'll put something in a paper or something, he keys in on that. And I can tell that he believes his role is to serve and to help and to lead from the bottom. And, and then, Colonel Onito kind of sticks out in my head too, because he's humble and he's a leader, and he was fun. He was fun to get to know and to work with.
Oh, that's fantastic. I mean, I don't know what we did right to be able to have these kind of faculty in the program, but it's a pretty special thing. I appreciate you highlighting those two folks here. In reviewing your work, and this is the part where I get to embarrass you a little bit here, Brice. Looking back at your work in the 570 course, I believe, and I think the evidence suggests, one of the reasons you won this award was that you had substantively strong posts, undeniable. You leveraged course material, you had great examples, brought in research, all the substantive stuff was on point. And this is really hard to pull off online. I say that because I struggle with it horribly myself. Like, you had a welcoming style. I mean, a lot of students said, cited your humor, or that you really triggered discussions just by having a friendly and welcoming online presence. Just a few quotes here to drive the point home. Some students who voted for you said the following, quote, "His initial posts are excellent, but his responses to other students' posts are always thought-provoking, insightful, and humorous. He had excellent examples that he shares from his career." Another student said, "Brice's posts are detailed, inspiring, relatable, and responsive. He is very engaged and engaging." And again, this is a tough thing to be able to accomplish, to have substantively strong posts that are also welcoming and humorous, and I think framed in a way that encourages others to jump in. Can you talk a little bit about that style? What do you think makes for a good discussion board post, and how do you have both? How do you both have strong substance and kind of that welcoming style that you're known for here, apparently?
I don't know. I wonder, you often mention where academia meets experience. There's some magic there or something. I've thought about that quote that you made often. And, another thing is I've screwed everything up in 22 years as much as anybody can. I've done everything wrong, and I've learned to do it right. I've struggled with accountability. I've struggled with maturity when I first became an officer. I've done a lot of things. I worked undercover narcotics. I mean, I have this lip issue right here today because I was going in a door with the young guys the other day. It'll teach me to stand around a SWAT call with, not having a job. But, just being involved and being real and realizing that we're all on this journey together to learn, and it never gets easy. It is very hard. And, I like the quote. I don't know if I'll butcher it or not, but I remember, but to be able to hold two opposing views in your head at the same time, and then being able to still function. That's what these discussion boards remind me of, is just sitting there and listening to people from different areas, different cultures, different, places, different issues. And like I said earlier, there's several right ways to do something. There's definitely a wrong way, but there's multiple right ways. And to have that open mind and be able to think that way. And really a lot of the jewels are on the off ramps. You're sitting here and you're talking about the discussion and the discussion boards. And it's amazing that you guys bring in, city managers and people from all these different angles, and you're learning all these different things, and you're trying to stay on topic, but it's those off ramps that you start going down on the discussion boards that are engaging and really good. And you just can't pass up the opportunity, really. And I try not to put too much, or too little. I just try to engage about the same as everybody else. But I really try to think and not just respond, because you get busy during the day and you're like, hey, I could just respond real quick and get this over with and get back to my work. But I'll try to write something and then just not send it. Mm-hmm. And then when I have some time, I'll actually think about, what the response is and try to learn from the dialogue.
That's fantastic. Think, not just respond. That's one of my key takeaways here, Chief. I appreciate that. I'm gonna steal that from you, or as we say in academia, like cite you for that quote here. Let's see, thinking about this public policy innovation class, it's pretty unique in our curriculum. It's the only class where we have a group project where you're in teams of 4 or 5, and you end up creating a memorandum of understanding for a joint task force for either criminal gangs or human trafficking, were our 2 targets this time around. Can you talk a little bit about the group project experience? Again, it's unique in our program, so I'm always excited to learn how it resonated with students.
Yeah, well, so I thought this online experience is interesting because anybody can shine in seclusion, and so and when you have time on your hands, but when you're in a group dynamic, your strengths and your weaknesses and everything start to surface, and it's my dad always used to talk to me about just the work ethic and isolation being the enemy of excellence, and teamwork and the importance of it. And I've been involved in sports my entire life, and learning and growing from that. I remember, I didn't start one time when I was a freshman in baseball, and my dad came home, and my mom had sent around a petition that everybody signed in town saying that I should start or whatever. My dad tore it up, and then he told me, you need to get into the batting cage and deal with it that way, and it made me a better person. And this team atmosphere it's what it's all about. And it was cool. Everybody on my team, they had humility, and it was interesting because we picked somebody from California that actually needed the document, and I could tell that he needed it. So we're like, hey, why don't we just write one for you, and then you lead this thing. And as soon as we had a leader, everybody fell in right way. And it reminded me of a staff meeting that I had here in my office. I felt like literally I had my staff. I mean, everybody was good. And there was a form we had to fill out at the end that said how everybody did. Yeah. And I was like, this is going to be so dumb because I'm going to put 4s on everybody or whatever the number was for the highest rank or whatever. And I was like, that is such a cop out. But but everybody did good. It was an amazing experience. So I got lucky with just a lot of good people.
I'm happy to hear that. I'm really happy that this particular member of your group had dual use. That's what we really try to achieve in the program. It's not just complete some abstract academic assignment, but we're not always successful, right? We failed forward many a time, but we try to produce deliverables that students might be able to actually use beyond the classroom. That's our goal, at least. As we wrap up here, Chief, we've covered a lot of great ground. I appreciate the conversation. Any final words for our law enforcement and public safety community out there?
So this is my favorite question when you ask anybody else, because that's when you get all the good information from the city managers and everybody that you interview. I always buckle down and listen when you ask kind of, hey, do you have any final words or whatever? And so, that's an interesting question. Maybe I'll branch off into maybe 2 quick topics. One, educationally, what kind of advice would I have or what works for me? So I drive to work now. Since I retired, I still live north of northern New Mexico. So it's about a 45 minute drive to come in and then to get. So what I do is I take that time, and I wasn't real excited about the drive at first, but it's been the best thing for me. And I take that time and I listen to books, I listen to podcasts, and if I'm going to have an issue at work that day or something that I'm struggling with, or going to have to talk to somebody and have a difficult conversation or something hard, I will research the night before something to listen to, and really just get my mind engaged and get that, like you say, get that experience to meet that academia and really have that hook and have clarity. And another thing I'll do, though, that's important, you could just say, okay, I drive and I listen to stuff. I mean, that's one thing, but really, I mean, what makes it significant is that I talk to my phone, and I don't just talk about what I'm hearing on the book or the tape or whatever. I take my experience and whatever retrieval cue that's given me while I'm listening. And so I'll say, according to Brice, just so I'm not getting quotes mixed up or stuff if I'm trying to cite something or whatever. and then I'll say whatever the book or the podcast is saying, and then I'll say according to Brice, and I'll put some of my own thoughts and ideas, and I actually send those to different buddies or partners that I've worked with in the past, and they send me theirs, and then I compile everything in a Word doc, or I'll try to compartmentalize it where I can use it. I use that stuff in discussion boards. I use it in papers. I use it in in meetings, and it's programs like this that have forced me to do this, and it's made me better. And then probably on the professional side, like I'll write down a quote on my board. You notice I don't really have a clean area behind me, but I have written up here right now, mediocre and entitled are not a good combination. I won't go into the details of why I have that on my board this week. But I put a lot of other things too up there. And another thing I have up there right now, I put a kind of an aha moment area where something really makes sense to me. It's interesting. I can read a book, that I read 3 years ago, and it means something totally different to me today. And so we all have those aha moments when we read things or hear things that we've heard our whole life. And one thing that I've heard over and over and over, and this is kind of my professional side now, is get your officers' backs, or admin should get the officers' backs. And I've always thought, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it can have a negative connotation and a positive connotation. But I've heard it from the employees mainly that admin should always get the officers' backs. Well, I've been in internal affairs for probably 12 years, and in one way or another. And I've come to the conclusion that if you want to get your officers' backs, then do it right, do it the hard way, and intervene early and intervene often. And it's like if you're going to work on a bridge, you don't do it when it's crumbled and when it's broken. You do it when people don't think work needs to be done. And that's when it's the hardest. When you see a use of force that's not against policy, it's going to be hard to explain that why you think there may be an issue. And that person's not going to, they'll respect you at least, but they're not going to be mad. They're not going to be happy for, the next 72 hours or whatever. But that's the time you intervene. It's easy to intervene when everything blows up and everything's bad. But that's not when you get people's backs. And that's when you're expected to, but that's the wrong time. You do it early, you do it often, you do it when it's hard. You do it when you're not going to be the popular person, and they'll thank you later because they'll see the intent behind it. And so that's kind of a couple of things on my mind that are just working right now on my board this week.
Those are fantastic. That leveraging that time that you have during your commute, which, by the way, here in California, that's about a 6-mile distance you're going to cover most days. But leveraging that time, I've always been a bit curious about. Clearly, you're known for bringing in all these outside resources and having unique analytical points. It's cool to get a little window into your process of where that stuff comes from and how you use it. It sounds like both in the program and in your professional life. But intervene early, intervene often, and do it when it's hard. That's another one of my main takeaways. I appreciate you sharing that. As we wrap up here, I know we're up against the clock a little bit. I really have enjoyed and benefited from the conversation here, Brice. It's plainly evident why your peers, and this is a high-performing group. To be recognized in this group, I think, should really mean a lot. So huge congratulations from all of us at the university for being voted discussion board MVP. And I will say it's students like you and your colleagues that really make this program go, and the insight and the candor and the taking on tough issues. It's again, as an outsider looking into your profession, it's a pretty special thing to be a part of. So thanks to you and your colleagues for allowing me to do so. Huge congratulations again. And thanks to everyone out there for joining us. And I'll kick it back to Kylie here.
Great. Thank you both so much today. It was a really great interview to watch. And thank you everyone who is watching live and everyone watching the replay. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us. You can catch this interview on our Facebook page or on YouTube, and we will see you all next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.